On this podcast, we will talk about the tools we have used in order to remind us who and what we are.
We will talk about the spiritual technologies that bring us back to the knowing that we are sovereign.
That bring us back to God. The only actual advice you will get on this podcast is to consult within.
The rest is all the things that happen when you do it.
My name is Jasai.
And my name is Stori.
And this is Sovereign You. Welcome back.
Welcome.
So, you have reached the offices of Sovereign You. And we're in today. We are in today. I'm going to take a deep breath. Get myself together here. And my holy inquiry for you today is, tell me something good. Just give me some good news. Tell me something good about your world, the world. What's good out here?
With regards to what?
Anything. And it's something that lights you up. Like you encountered something, read something, heard something that made you feel like, oh, you know what? Life is good out here.
I would say, because right now I'm super focused on cultivating myself. I would say that my ability to stay consistent is good right now.
It's making you feel good.
It is. It really is making me feel good. It's making me feel stable, that always makes me feel good.
All right. I like it. Which is perfect for today's episode about work.
Yes.
About work. So good.
And what about you?
What is making me feel good? I am delighted to have learned that one of my favorite spiritual teachers is in Southern California. Sadhguru is not only is Sadhguru in Southern California, which would be great. You know, if I had to drive anywhere in drivable distance to see Sadhguru, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Sadhguru is in walking distance. I know you think
lies you tell. The lies you tell.
I know you think it's not walkable for me, but if a human,
if you were
could walk
a different
to it,
person.
The Sadhgurus in Canoga Park, California, is astonishing. I really feel, I think that God prefers me, not over anybody, just prefers me. Period.
Likes you,
there's preference. Yes, there's a lot of good.
Yeah, I always say I'm God's favorite.
God's favorite.
Yeah.
And so when I learned, just one night, I was drawing, and I was like, you know what? I need something good to listen to, something that's going. While my right brain is open, I want to feed it something beautiful. And I was Googling Sadhguru.
And what's the function of the right brain?
The right brain is the creative side of your brain. Okay. So when your right brain is open, you have good flow in and out of your creative energy. Your left brain is all about your cognitive thinking. Right brain is
so now that that's open.
Yes, I want to put some good food in it, basically.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm going to do a Sadhguru talk. And when I typed in Sadhguru in Google, you know how Google is. They're like, what you want? What do you want about this? And it said, I can get you anything. And it said Sadhguru Los Angeles. And then I got a little more excited because I was like, oh, maybe Sadhguru's going to come to Los Angeles. Let me see. Mm-hmm. And then I clicked that. And it said that Sadhguru had an address in Canoga Park. And I nearly slid off the couch.
Yeah.
I was like, no, is this real? It took me a few minutes. And the guy was like, well, of course it's real. Why would it not be real?
Right.
Why would Sadhguru not be in your city? And so I've adjusted to the magical reality of that. Went over there, was witness to their consecration of their new location. Just feeling very, very blessed to be able to have access to him as a teacher.
And we went with Uncle Josh and Malachi.
Man. It was so beautiful. And so that is blessing me big. Yeah. I think that reverberation is going to be happening for years, frankly.
No, yeah, I have this red string around my wrist and it just keeps reminding me. I was at work yesterday and it just kept reminding me of that place. It like reminds me of the first time we did silence and I had the realization that I could take this experience and have and refer back to the feeling. And so that's what it helps me do. It just helps me retain and reclaim that peace that I experienced when I was there. And that's why I was so excited when I was there. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm so glad this is a part of my experience.
Your experience set.
Yes.
Because that is. And we know the importance of what's in your experience set, because it literally informs what you think about the world, how you
Right.
experience the world. If somebody has a bunch of challenging things in their experience set, they move about in a really challenged way, because what else would they pull from? So if you are deliberate about putting beneficial things in your experience set,
And
then
seeing them as a benefit too. Yeah,
absolutely,
recognizing them
absolutely.
as a benefit.
So that's amazing. I haven't put my red string on yet, but I do have my copper bracelets, and I've been reading about copper. I was stunned by what copper is and
Yes.
can do for us inside of our bodies.
And I didn't realize that copper is one of like the top 3 metals in our body.
Yes. So
Yeah,
I'm down. I'm down with whatever comes from that space. So shout out to Sadhguru.
for sure.
Maybe we'll have him on the show one day.
And the Isha community, because that's the people
Yes, that
selling.
absolutely. So today's conversation is about work. Work is a major subject in our lives, in our family, because our work is a family business. Our work has been a family business since nearly the beginning. And frankly, our family, even before Alio, in my mind, as you know, one of the heads of our family, along with your father, we ran it very much like a business in some respects. Like we made sure that it made sense, that it wasn't just, we weren't just out here haphazard, you know, just throwing it together. However, like we were really thoughtful about what the framework of our family was going to be, how people were going to treat each other, how, you know, so there were rules. There was a manual for how we intended to have and raise and be in a family from the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to talk to you about that and share some of the ways that we make that happen, and make that happen peaceably. And maybe when it's not so peaceable, what kind of tools we use in order to get back on track. So,
Right.
why don't you begin by telling the people what you do?
So I work for Alio, and at Alio, I do inventory. I'm in charge of inventory. I'm in charge of orders, and I'm in charge of making beads. And sometimes I design beads, but that's mostly what you do. Um, and I also work at Wingstop. So yes, that's what I do.
Beautiful. And at Alio, I do all the rest of the things. You know, and so you could think about that at a quick glance, and that looks like all the administrative kind of things. I order, I do customer service along with you.
Oh yeah, of course.
I
Grade A customer service.
grade A. I have to say, bravo, grade A customer service. Ask anybody. I make sure that I do marketing. That's a huge, we live in a world where you have to market, which also means I do all the social media. Um, I make sure that the spiritual technology piece is present. Like I'm always, not only am I thinking about how spirituality lends itself to the work we do, or is a part of the work we do, but I am studying myself as spirit in order to see how spirit works in a real life, in my own real life, and then
Right.
and then sharing that with other people and encouraging people to look at how spirit is working in their life, and to notice that and pay attention, because that's leverage. um, and so Alaya was a spiritual technology company. And I know that on the surface, it looks like we sell waist beads, because we do, and there are levels to life, as you will hear on this podcast quite often. And so, at one level, we make and manufacture waist beads, and then at another level, we are creating a container for people to have access to themselves
Right.
at the highest level through their physical being.
I feel like that's what we do mostly. Like, obviously, we spend our time, or me, obviously, I spend my time physically making beads, but I don't think that like people would really be buying our beads if there wasn't something to them, if there wasn't something that they could attached to themselves beyond just the material. Because a lot of people sell waist beads, like you always say. But I think that people really are attracted to the fact that there's meaning behind the beads.
Absolutely. And so, why don't you explain the meaning of waist beads for you?
So for me, a waist bead is a mindfulness tool at best. It's a weight management tool, and it just brings me closer to my experience. Um, a lot of not only like meditative practices, but practices that cultivate growth for me are practices that you have to refrain. So waist bead wearing is a refraining practice because the beads aren't elastic. When I'm full and I have eaten enough food, I have to stop eating. But I'm
Yes.
also and have a tendency to be an emotional eater.
Mm.
So when I'm going through a particular emotion, I have been in my waist bead practice, I have been brought to having to address what I'm feeling emotionally as opposed to eating. And so I just started to realize, like, had I not worn waist beads, I don't know. Because
You don't know what.
I don't know. I don't know what would happen with me.
So that reminds me of a song.
But
That reminds me of a song in church that says, basically, tell me where would I be? Oh, if it
Yeah.
had not been for the Lord on my
yeah,
side.
because I don't really think that
Where
like
would I be?
before I was wearing waist beads, I had a whole lot of emotional discipline. Like I just
Mm.
had an ability to be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling and this is going to address how I'm feeling. Like even to this day, like I see myself if I'm going through something challenging, and right now I'm saving money so I'm not trying to DoorDash every 5 seconds, but when I'm feeling an emotion or a large emotion comes over me, I am already payment already processed
Oh.
and through and done, and your dasher is on their way. By the time I realize, oh wow, that was an emotion that brought me there.
That's so
And
beautiful.
so I'm like, now that I'm aware of that, it's not that it doesn't happen, but there is an awareness. So there is a discomfort because now it's time to grow. And so yeah, I feel like it's definitely evolved. So while I might not be eating to the point of, my beads popping or them feeling uncomfortable, I absolutely am brought to the awareness that like I eat out of emotion, for sure.
I like it. I like it. I like it. So you mentioned refraining.
Right.
Refraining in the workplace. So you and I have been working together for how many years?
Now, full time, 3.
3 years. Okay.
But while I was in school, a total of 5.
Oh, look at us.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Because you did the first year all by
yes.
yourself.
So Alio is 6 years old. You've been working here for 5 years. You started working here when you were in high school, 16 years old, because you loved it? Did you love it? Is that how you started working here?
No, I was asked to work here.
Were you asked?
I was made to work here.
And that's the thing. And I mention that because sometimes we enter into a situation not of our own
and
will
I don't
and
think
wanting.
that, I think that it was more haphazard for me before. Like it was if I felt like it. Like if I was like, oh, I want to spend time with my mom, I'll go downstairs and make a bead. But no, I wasn't actively making beads or, I would sit by you. The conception of the name Alio came from me reading A Raisin in the Sun. And that was the name for Benitha that he wasn't her boyfriend, but he was a boy that admired her. And that was what he noticed about her because she was very like on her, on her business, about her business. Like, no, this is who I'm going to be. This is what I want to do. Not really coming from a background that was super resourced, but was very clear who she was going to be.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's what he admired about her, but also was noting, not in a snarky way, but in an admirable, but very honest way. Like, oh, you are Alio, and Alio basically means for whom bread is not enough.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading that part of the book, you just said that's the name.
Listen, I was in what most people would commonly refer to as a trance state So I was making this bead
Right.
while she was reading. We like each other. So when she was younger, we spent a lot of time just sort of in the hang in the same space. And she was reading her school book and I was making this bead. And I wasn't making the bead to start a bead company. I wasn't interested in a bead company. Frankly, I feel like I was in deep resistance with my language of starting a bead company because there wasn't anything in that for me. It really was all about wearing them. And I just happened to have been in a bead store and grabbed some beads. You can't just have beads as a grown woman and not do anything with them. So I was like, oh, I'm going to make a bead. But as soon as that needle touched down in that bead, I was like, oh, this is samadhi. Like this is a portal. And I was in that portal. But when you're in trance, you're not asleep. You're in sort of what in Eastern culture and Eastern spirituality called the bardo. It's like the in-between place. So I was in my practice. I was doing the bead, but I was also present. And I heard that word. And I didn't know what the word meant, which is how God works. God's like, no, I got all the technical pieces covered. You ain't got to worry about that. But I heard that word and my spirit said, that's it. Whatever's happening here right now, that's the word that you attach to it.
And it's just such a perfect word because I think that in life it's easier to take what's given to you as opposed to decide what you're going to have. And so when people come in here and they choose the beads based off of the color, they're setting an intention and their intention is to follow it. And so the meaning, one for whom bread is not enough, basically speaks to that in saying that no, you're going to choose what you want and then you're going to follow that. And there's a community to support you.
Beautiful.
And there's hundreds of other women who are doing the same thing. So it's a possibility. And what was the word that they were using in this puja ceremony that it's called? It was started with a C.
Consecrate.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of possibility, turning the energy of what you feel into a possibility.
I love that. Work and sovereignty. So sovereignty is all about sort of being your own highest authority. How does one who may not have a family business to enter, how does one get to a place where they can be sovereign in the work that they do?
We talked a little bit about your behavioral resume. And so I thought that was interesting to bring up and to mention because not everybody is an entrepreneur.
Right.
But the way that you show up is the way that the job is going to be done and reflected through you. So if you come to work and your shirt's all wrinkly and your hair is all crazy and, you know, whatever the task at hand is, you're just shuffling it around and it's all sporadic, you might lose your job. Because the way that you're showing up, no matter what your capabilities say that you can do and achieve, that's not shown through how you show up to do those things. And so even if you can get the task done, how you get it done and how you operate with others matters. So I feel like sovereignty is showing up as you to your job and making sure that that's reflected properly on how you want to be perceived in the space.
Even when you don't like the job.
Even when you don't, I mean, yeah. I would suggest for people who don't like their jobs to find a job that they do like them.
Now, has there ever been a time you didn't like some aspect of your job? And then how do you overcome that? Because you can't just, I mean, I guess you could, but reasonably speaking, this is probably not the kind of job you just be like, you know what, I'm quitting this and going to find something else to do.
For sure.
So how do you overcome that energy of not liking to do a particular thing?
There is one thing about not liking a particular task, and there's another thing about you feeling a deep hate for what you do. Okay. I think that there is definitely an obvious difference. When there is no light to be seen in this space whatsoever, but you're only here for a check. That's way different than this task is challenging.
And now we do know that there are people at their jobs that are just there for the check. And I would say that that's still an opportunity. Because what you can see is that you're willing to give your good energy and all your time for a check and nothing else.
But for me, the challenge with that is that, well, then don't complain about it. You know, if you know why you're there, because that's like my thing with Wingstop, right? I know why I'm there.
Right.
So when customers are maybe a little bit mean or, you know, maybe when I'm not really trying to have the deepest interaction with my coworkers every single day, I also am very, very clear why I'm there.
Right.
And so I'm not going to be like, oh, this minimum wage, this 9-to-5 job that I hate so much. That's not my personality. That's not my interaction with the space that I'm showing up to for my very specific reason. That's not.
So that is just like choosing a waistbead. That's all about intention. And a thing is going to work better for you. I tell people all the time, some people come in here and they want me to choose. And now that people know the game, usually when they come, they get how the game goes. But early on, people would be like, no, you just pick. And I would gently say, well, you know, that's not how it goes. This goes a particular way. In order for it to be the magic that you had heard it involves you. You have to be participating. And that really frustrates some people that they have to participate in the experience that's going to benefit them. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure how we got
Right, that
there.
doesn't even sound right. But
I'm not sure how we got there as in our humanity. But I think that having clear intentions about why you're working where you're working is super, super, super important. And that's whether you love the actual job or hate it. Because days look different. Exactly. Every day, circumstance looks different. And so if I'm clear, no, I come here. So there was one job in particular, where when I accepted the job, I was very clear from the beginning, because you're not always, sometimes, when you're really just trying to survive, you have children to feed, you're like, I need a job that's going to pay this amount of money, have the right amount of hours, have the, the right schedule, whatever.
Children to feed is a whole different ballgame.
Absolutely. But there's one job I decided I'm going in there to learn how I am, which is a really, really, really profound offering to put in front of yourself, because then the universe is going to say, okay, well, she want to know how she is when people talk crazy. She wants to know how she is when the job is boring. Because all of those things happen. And then I got to watch myself. I got to watch, when you're bored, you hop online and waste a bunch of time when you could be, at least if you're going to hop online, exploring things that are going to put you in a different position to have a different kind of job.
Not just taking up space because you don't like what
Because you don't like what's happening in the moment. So to anyone who is working and might not be in a job where it feels ideal, or it was the thing you thought you were going to be when you grow up, know that there is still so much opportunity, especially there to see who and how you are. And then with that knowledge, with that information, you now get to make whatever adjustments need to be made.
Right.
And then you become another kind of person, a different level of yourself. And then guess what? That attracts what that level of yourself can hold.
Because I was going to say the information part is really, really important, because if you are constantly thinking about and have your mind on the fact that you don't like where you're at, that's the only information that you have.
Yeah.
Whereas if you switched your perspective, you would have a whole new set of thoughts that would lead you to a whole new set of experiences. And I don't think people necessarily believe that to be true unless they actively do it. Like, there's no way to know that that's true unless you do it.
Absolutely. So this is why I was reading something last night from Sadhguru, because Sadhguru is who I'm reading right now. And Sadhguru said that if you want to, there's a difference between a teacher and a guru. A teacher is somebody that teaches you from the bottom 3 chakras. And a guru is somebody that teaches you from the top 3. And the real differentiating measure there is your willingness to experience. A yogi is somebody who's in the experience. I don't got to believe nothing. I don't got to read nothing. I'm not interested in what anybody else has to say about it. You know what I know? What I experience. That's a yogi. And because the word yogi and yoga means union, and a yogi is a student, that I'm really a student. When I'm a yogi, I'm really a student of my experience.
Yeah.
We can be yogis on our job. Like, we really could decide, you know what? I'm going to go in here and pay attention to what happens to me in this meeting. What am I doing in this meeting? What does my mind do when other people are talking about things I'm interested in, about things I'm not interested in? Like, who am I? Because without that information in hand, it's really going to be difficult to get to the work pinnacle that you have imagined for yourself.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, that's just true insight. And I feel like that's the difference between people being like, okay, I'm here, so maybe I'm not doing anything negative. I feel like people are either waiting for something super bad to happen or super grand to happen. And so, you know, you may be in a meeting and you're attentive, you're not on your phone, you know, you're paying attention, you're giving everybody space to be heard. So you won't be written up for being disrespectful. But at the same time, there may be somebody in your office and you're like, wow, like they always have such great input and they always have, you know, such great ideas. And you wonder how you could be like that. But I think to get closer to that is bringing your attention closer to you.
To you, for sure. I love that. I love that. Work for me started when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy to think about, to say that out loud. Like, I was working for money from 10 years old and I was braiding hair. So my magic in the world has always been hand-eye magic. And I remember realizing, oh, you can do something you love and people will pay you for it. And I was reminded of that sort of at the beginnings of Alio, because I'm like, oh no, I'm doing now what I've always done. And so one of the things that really I think is very valuable for people who are not in jobs that they love is to go back and fetch it. Like, what did you love when you were a child? What did you do that you could do for hours and hours and hours as a child, whether people were around, whether people clapped for you, whether you got paid to do it or not? Because a lot of what is unfulfilling about our jobs is because it doesn't include those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Is there any matching sort of symbiosis from what you did when you were a kid, whiling the hours away, to what you do now? Where do those things meet for you in the work you do at Alio?
I've always been interested in any form of creativity, any form of art. So I love music. I love the fact that people can put words together and that, you know, more recently, I am much more attracted to people who make beats, so producers and engineers. The fact that people can have an idea, can hear sounds, can put beats together in their mind, and then produce that. That's so interesting to me because there's already just so much art, right? And so art is just this endless, and creativity in and of itself is this endless and continuous kind of cycle and fountain of abundance. Because once I'm attracted to a piece of art as an artist, I'm influenced by that.
Absolutely.
So I'm not a copycat, but
you're changed by it.
It exists in my experience. And so as a part of my creativity, I can grow off that and the other things that I've been influenced by and create something entirely new.
Second chakra energy all day. Second chakra energy all day. That anthropologist that I was telling you about, brilliant in so much as he was talking about how colonizers, I'm gonna use that word just because that's the word, and you know, I'm not trying to be political here, but that's the word he used and I don't have time to fetch another word. But colonizers go into these places that they colonize and they burn the books and they steal the art, they take the art, because art isn't just art, it is conjuring. When you, just like you said, when somebody brings a piece of music from inside of them out into the world and then you hear it, it changes you.
And it's also a kind of communication that goes beyond language. So once
Absolutely.
language dies, you know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Once there's no real use for, like when we'll see hieroglyphs, right?
Mm.
There's no real use for currently, unless you study and read hieroglyphs,
Mm-hmm.
what that actually
Mm-hmm.
means. But when you look at it, you can
Ooh.
resonate with what you see, because those shapes and animals and structures are still relevant today. And so I think that through time, art persists because it's something that everybody can understand. That's why music is one of the most, one of the most, I would say, resourced forms of art that there is. And I mean, there are other art
And
forms that
people
make
refer to
lots of
music
money,
as the
but
universal language because it does. It
yeah,
moves you.
lots of people, no matter what language you speak, you can relate to a certain sound, a certain vibration. And I could even
Like those
say that
mantras.
for, yeah, I could even say that for even art in a museum. You know, you see it and you're just like, wow. Like even the fact that like the Mona Lisa is still so significant in so many people's eyes. And I'm not really entirely sure why, but I think that art generally just moves people.
Mm.
And especially if you're not an artist, I feel like it's even more moving.
Because you're like, how is that
Yeah,
happening?
how is that even possible?
How's that even happening? Um, I was explaining to Kim mantras and how they work again on the right side of your brain, particularly mantras in a different language, because your left side is cut out of the game.
Right.
I don't know what these words mean, but I can
Technically.
feel what they do.
Yes.
Is so valuable. And so in the same way that music is a universal language, I think that that's why what we do and have here at Alio is so impactful, because a waist bead is as old as time. It is an ancient African spiritual technology that's been used for various things within various cultures all over the continent of Africa. But when they came here, when they got brought into this space, and what I was paired with what they are, it became a whole new thing. Literally created a whole new world, because the magic of that creation mixed with the magic of me, mixed
Right.
with the magic of you, and this time and space
Right.
literally just keeps on making. It's like this
Yes.
plant. If I cut all this down, but I leave the root,
And that's the thing, timing is everything. And so,
absolutely.
while people might be feeling like, oh, to be spiritual, to be mindful, to be present is a sort of fad, I think instead of thinking of it as that, because it's not a trend. I don't think that it's going to
Well,
ever
no.
end. I think that people who are really interested in it are being changed. And so
Mm-hmm.
what you're seeing is social evolution, really.
Ooh-wee.
And so I feel like as a part of that and our business happening with that simultaneously, that
Absolutely.
is a timing
It
thing.
is
That is a
God's
timing
timing, for
aspect.
sure. For sure, it is a God's timing thing. Um, and so I want to thank you, frankly, for being a part of this social evolution and really human evolution,
Yeah.
because humans in our current form, like we have experienced brilliance, the brilliance of humans at this level. We see it. We've seen it with all the creation of the new technologies. But in order for humans to become what's next for us, the evolution really is an inner evolution. And the technology of waist beads is really helping people to access themselves on the inside, to bring what is inside out.
Yeah.
And it is an honor to do this work. It is an honor to do this work with you. And it is an honor to be able to live and have my living be also what feeds me.
Right.
It's wild and beautiful. So you have something to share. This is the section of the podcast where we are talking about a book that inspired us, or maybe something we've seen throughout the week that's inspired us. And you
Yes.
have what?
So yesterday, this post was circulating on pretty much so many different people's pages.
Oh, nice.
Really, really popular. Let me pull it up.
And this has everything to do with your algorithm. So while she's looking for that, if you are having things pop up on your algorithm that are disturbing your peace, you need to reprogram your algorithm. This is just that it's not inevitable. What happens on your algorithm is not inevitable. Your phone, when you got it, was empty. If there is something on your phone that is irritating your spirit, you put it there. And so you can
Yes.
change it. All right.
So there's this man named Cory Muscara. I hope
Mhm.
I'm not mispronouncing his name, but basically in this thread he created on Instagram or Twitter, it says, I meditated for 15
Oh
hours a
my
day for
God.
6 months straight with one of the toughest Buddhist monks on the planet, and here's what I learned. So he gave lots of different bullet points on what he learned, but I landed and posted page 19, or not page 19, but number 19 through
Mhm.
22. And number 19 says, there are 3 layers of a moment: your experience, your awareness of the experience, and the story about the experience behind. Be mindful of the story. And then 20 says, your mind doesn't wander, it moves towards what it finds most interesting to improve focus. Become curious about what is in front of you. 21 says, life continues whether you pay attention to it or not.
Hmm.
I think it's why the passage of time is so scary. And 22 says, high pain tolerance is a double-edged sword. It's key for self-control, but can cause us to override the pain of being out of alignment.
I was so stunned as a meditator, as a long time meditator who has deeply benefited from the practice of meditation in all its forms. And at some later podcast, we'll talk about all the forms of meditation
For
and
sure.
what that means. But I was awestruck at his clarity, his ability to translate the benefit of meditation and his experience of
Right.
meditation in such a clear way that would really resonate with people.
And that's the thing, like the clarity of his experience. So he
Mhm.
doesn't even need to be speaking to my experience. But as long as you have meditated, as long as you have paid attention, you can relate. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like when you speak truthfully and honestly about your experience, people will relate. I mean, they don't have to have had that experience, but they will relate. This page specifically, I've definitely had close contact with most of those experiences because especially the first one, saying your experience, there are 3 layers of a moment:
That one.
your experience, your awareness of the experience, and
And
your
the
story
story.
about the experience. Because that's what I tell people when they come into the studio and we're talking about or referencing the third eye chakra and the crown chakra.
Mhm.
Especially when it comes to the third eye chakra, like your perspective is yours. And I think that sometimes people, there's somebody dear to me that always says, make it make sense. But to who?
Right.
Who is it supposed to make sense to?
Because when people say that, they have maybe in their mind or in their imagination that there's a universal sense. No, there's no such thing as a universal sense.
No.
You might be able to find 9 people who agree with you,
Yeah.
but if you opened up their brains, even the reasons why they agree with you are different.
Exactly. And so the thing is that when people come in, I say, okay, so there may be 5 of us in the room, but we're all having 5 different experiences.
Absolutely.
If we were to relay what happened today, we would have 5 different stories. Because there's nobody, you could have somebody literally pinned to the side of your body.
Listen, with the exact
But
same
you
DNA.
would not have the same exact experience as them, no matter what, because you have 2 different minds. You have 2 different ways of perceiving. So I thought that was really beautiful.
I was so in love with that. I think when I saw it on your page, and then when I reshared it, because I'm good on overload. You do a lot. You like a lot of moderate. Let me just give them. Every page. I was like, no, y'all gonna get this page. You gonna read.
No, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Read all these things. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that on your page and here.
Of course.
So now it is time to answer one of the questions from our community, and I'm going to do the honors today. Today's question is, how do you find work you love while you're in work you don't love? And when I first heard this question, the time and energy came up for me, because I know that if I've ever thought that, like, how do I do it? It had everything to do with how do I have time?
Mhm.
How do I have the energy when I've been at work for 8 hours a day? Maybe I've commuted 1 hour because I live in LA. Maybe I've commuted 1 hour to get there and 1 hour to get back. And then I had to pick my kids up and then I have to cook and then I have to do homework. And, so I'm answering this from a mom perspective. What you do is that you be present. You be present because in my life, I have had to trust the organizing intelligence of the universe to support me. There is no.
She said we need to call on a higher power.
All of it. I need all of it because I have found that there is no outside methodology when your life is that packed.
Mm-hmm.
That you have to say, you know what? Right now it's time to pick up the children. So I'm going to really be in pick up the children mode. I'm not going to be resistant to this. And again,
Right.
This is when it worked. This is when I got information.
Mm-hmm.
When I wasn't doing this, there was nothing but chaos,
Mhm.
nothing but internal chaos when I'm on the way to pick you guys up and not wanting to be doing that.
And just obviously, quote unquote, no more time.
Yeah. And right. And there's obviously no more time. Like I'm not going to get home, do all these things, and at 11:45 start exploring things I'm curious about.
And I think that chaos creates exhaustion because we've even talked about the reality is that there's 400 million plus seconds in a day. And so what are you really doing every second of the day? And I feel like so many people are spending their time doing what they have to do, but then also being exhausted by what they have to do.
Yeah.
So instead of being present with what they have to do, it's like, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm also thinking about, and so that's the whole aspect of grounding.
Yeah.
I'm doing this, but I'm also thinking about what I have to do 15 minutes from now. And then when I do that, I'm gonna be thinking about what I have to do 15 minutes from that point.
It makes me tired just hearing it.
You're never really enjoying your experience. And I think to your point, when you have presence, so maybe you're not, maybe in your packed schedule, maybe in your day-to-day, you're not having the current experience of giving yourself time to do what you love.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you stay present, you can say, okay, are there some things I'm doing that I don't have to do?
Yeah.
Because once you start to realize that and you start to organize that, then you're like, okay, now I have a whole hour of my day free. So now what am I going to implement? Because I've decided through my attention and through paying attention that I don't actually have to do that.
Yeah. I got rid of my TV. So I'm going to give some practical offerings here. Get rid of your television. And see, this is the thing, when you give people things to do, like my new thing to ask people that come into the studios, what's your practice?
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing's going to change in your life if you don't practice something different.
So you would say TV is something you don't have to do.
You don't have to.
Especially if you're feeling like you're not doing
what you want to do.
Yeah.
Then you certainly don't have to watch TV.
Right.
That there really are, it's hard to admit or to understand that we are making choices that are making our lives hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really hard to admit that. But then once you get past that, like forget that makes you feel a kind of way, because you already feel a kind of way.
Right.
You already feel miserable. Once the responsibility aspect you get over, I remember thinking for a long, I think one time before I got rid of the TV, we did a week of no TV. And I was like, you know what? When we come home this week, no TV.
I feel like I was addicted to TV, so I don't even remember how that transition. I could care less about watching TV now.
Yes.
But I wonder I don't really remember what that transition was like.
But isn't that beautiful? That's beautiful, because you were like, is it time? I did my stuff. I'm like running down to sit in front of the TV.
6 a.m. cereal. I'm ready.
And not remembering transitioning out of something you love so dearly really does mean like we can get over things. We can grow. We can move on. We don't have to always be a seedling.
Yeah.
We can grow into the larger, sort of wider versions of us. But you do have to do something. It is time out on the planet now for hoping and wishing and believing. We have to activate ourselves. And so if you're in a job right now that you don't love, activate yourself there. Activate your attention to your commute. What are you thinking on your commute? Can you change what you're thinking? Can you change the inputs on your commute so that you get a different set of ideas that might generate something new.
Yeah, I think overall inputs is really an important focus, because now that I think about it, TV was no never mind to me once Netflix was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and also once my phone became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're on TV and you have things on demand, you're choosing what you want to watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's on my phone
Mm-hmm.
is so curated to what I want to see that the TV can't even compete.
Can't compete. Yeah. And then you can bless
So-
yourself or curse yourself
Exactly.
in that
So
space.
I think that from that point, just what you input, what you do take in is really important. Like, even if you're attracted to this, even if this is what, entertains you, be very careful of what kinds of entertainment you're taking in.
Absolutely. That is a lot. It is a lot to hold and know and process and accept. So acceptance is really, because work is such a big part of our lives, accepting our role in the experience we are having of the work we do every day it's a lot to swallow, but it is yours.
Mm-hmm.
It is the pie that you baked, and so you do have to eat it. But then once you do that, you're like, okay, this is what's in front of me, and then these are the things that I can do in order to put myself in a different place. And you don't have to be overwhelmed. Like I know that because I needed a deep breath, I know that all of that could feel like something in a person. But really, you only have to take one step. Take one step, do one thing, change one thing. And then from that change, it's like if you were paddling a boat. If I move this oar slightly in a different direction, that boat is going to turn slightly in a different direction. So we don't have to be overwhelmed with needing to do 100 things. Just do
Right.
one thing consistently and then watch you become a different version of yourself. And then that version of yourself is going to know something more about how to help you.
For
So,
sure.
with that being said, thank you so much for tapping in with us today. If you are interested in the long form video, watching this on our Patreon, you can do that by heading over to the Guardian Meditation Patreon. This is where all of our sort of Alio amplified offerings are available. So you can join that. And if you would be a dear and check us out on Instagram, follow us at Sovereign U Pod. And if you have a question that you would like to submit to us, you can do that via DM and we will put it in the Wisdom Owl and we will get to it. Oh, also, if you would rate and review this podcast, we would love that and
Very
appreciate
much
that.
appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
My joy is now. Altogether lovely, pleasure and abundance. All things as it should be, pleasure and abundance.